So David's been king for a while now, and like all the kings did, he would go out with his army and have these wars. Well, one year, instead of going out and leading the army himself, he sent Joab off to take care of the army, and David stayed home in that nice palace of his in Jerusalem. So one day, David got up from his nap, and he's walking around on the roof of the palace, looking out over Jerusalem, and he sees a beautiful woman taking a bath. So he sends a messenger to go find out who she was. And the messenger comes back and says, "That's Bathsheba, Uriah's wife, Eliam's daughter." So he has her brought to the palace, sleeps with her, and then sends her back home. Well, before too long, Bathsheba realized that she was pregnant, and so she sent word to David. So David brought Uriah back from the war, and Uriah's telling him how the war's going and stuff, and David's like, "Oh, okay. Well, go home, relax, see your wife, and then I'll send you back." So Uriah leaves, but he doesn't go home. He goes and he sleeps with the king's other servants at the entrance to the palace. Well, next day when David heard that, he calls Uriah in and he's like, "Dude, I don't get it. I told you to go home, relax, and see your wife. Why didn't you do that? I don't get it." And Uriah's like, "Oh, my king, I couldn't do something like that. The army is out fighting a war, sleeping in tents. I couldn't do something like that, go home and be comfortable and see my wife." And so David's like, "Okay, well, stay around a while longer and then I'll send you back." So then that night, David invites him over for dinner and gets him really drunk, thinking now for sure he'll go home and see his wife. But he doesn't do it. He does the same thing, sleeping with the king's servants there at the entrance to the palace. Well, when David found out about that, he wrote a letter to Joab, and he said, "You know what? Put Uriah up at the front part of the army, of the battle where the fighting is the fiercest, so that he'll be killed." And then he seals the letter, and he gives it to Uriah to bring to Joab. Uriah brings the message himself to Joab. So he does, and Joab gets the message and puts Uriah right up there in the front, and several men were killed, including Uriah. And so when Joab saw that, he gets a messenger, and he's like, "Go tell King David that, we came up against the city, and several men were killed." And if David gets all mad and says, "Well, why weren't you being more careful what you're going to come up against the walls so close for?" tell him Uriah is one of the ones that got killed. And so the messenger gave David the message, and David's like, "Tell Joab, men die in war. That's just how it is. Try harder next time and take the city." But when Bathsheba found out that her husband had been killed, she mourned for him. After her time of mourning was over, David had her brought to the palace, and he made her his wife, and she had the baby. But in all of this, God was not pleased with what David had done.